The world of quantum physics is incredibly fascinating. In this area of physics, reality as we know it ceases to exist. Atoms are mainly made up of nothing, and information can move from one place to another almost instantly. But let me introduce you to the craziest theory of quantum physics, the observer effect. The observer effect is the most fundamental concept when it comes to contemporary quantum theory. The quantum theory implies that there is no phenomenon until it is observed. This means that before anything can happen, it has to be measured or observed first. The observer effect is an extension to this theory. It is actually the changes that occur due to something being observed. To look at this from a different perspective, let's look at a bicycle. To measure the air pressure inside this tire, we first need to let some air out, therefore changing the actual pressure. So through observing or measuring something, the outcome changes. A very famous example of this is the double slit experiment. Until the early 19th century, it was believed that light consisted of particles. This was proven by numerous experiments and was even supported by Sir Isaac Newton. However, in 1801, when Thomas Young came along with a completely new experiment, everything changed. He set up a barrier with two slits between a wall and a source of light. If light was to behave as predicted by Newton, it would form two bands on the opposite wall. However, what happened was completely different. The light didn't behave like it should. It behaved like a wave. When waves travel, they behave differently than particles. If I use these two balloons to create two separate waves, you can see that there is a kind of interference between them. When the top of one wave meets the bottom of another wave, they cancel each other out. This results in constructive and destructive interference. This is exactly what happened in the double slit experiment. The light created an interference pattern on the opposite wall, meaning that it acted like a wave. But how? To figure that out, scientists placed a measuring device right in front of the barrier to see how light behaves. However, what happened was incredibly interesting. The pattern that was created on the opposite wall was no longer an interference pattern. There were two bands of light, just as Newton predicted. This meant that the simple act of measuring or observing the photon changed the behavior of the photon. This means that any time we try to measure, observe, or even look at something, we never really receive correct information.